Hello everybody. This week we're going to continue our educational journey with avoiding costly mistakes in your retirement investments, particularly while we're navigating a low interest rate environment. Thanks for joining us. I'm Telton Hall, Certified Financial Planner at Advanced Financial Planning in Cedar City, Utah, where our team members help upper middle class and affluent families accomplish their retirement goals. We started this whole How to Retire in a Low Interest Rate Environment educational series with the common question, should I pull money out of my investments to avoid a mortgage in retirement, or should I leave my money invested? We explored the whole mortgage aspect of that in video 1, but an interesting aspect of that question is the phrase, or leave my money invested, because it begs the question, leave it invested in what? Well, there are so many different places to have your money invested. That's why these educational videos have been addressing how different investments and investment vehicles are affected by all-time low Fed fund rates and low Treasury rates. We've discussed a lot of stuff. We've discussed short and midterm investments and FDIC insured accounts, and then we addressed questions on various types of annuities. That has led us to the point where now we are covering some basic concepts on mid to long-term investment strategies in low interest rate environments. We're covering tactical allocations, strategic allocations, index allocations, and then true diversification in this new low interest rate world. Last video, we reviewed how a tactical portfolio, it could be used to help you navigate turbulent times and this really low interest rate retirement world we're in. Next, and over the next few videos, we'll discuss strategic and index allocations. As always, we're not saying whether these approaches are right for you. We won't know that until we have the pleasure of having a conversation with you to determine what is in your best interest. But we are trying to give you some really straightforward education to help you make smart decisions with regard to your retirement. Let's start this education by reviewing the vocabulary. I know this sounds like grammar school, but hey, virtual education is all the rage these days, right? So stick with me. The definition that we're going to use for tactical and strategic and even index allocations, frankly, they're really blurred. We're segregating them here in order to teach you the concepts, but I would suggest that you have some flexibility in your definitions when you start to actually explore actual investment allocations, because there's certainly not like this hard line in the sand of separating, for instance, tactical and strategic. So for our purposes, let's define it like this. Tactical, that's the one we discussed last video, it attempts to answer the question, should I be in or out of a specific market? We use the pretty popular high yield bond market as our example, where a manager or a mathematical algorithm, it will dictate if you are invested in that particular market or if you're sitting in cash on the sideline at a given time. And it would be the same, for example, if the manager or the mathematical triggers dictated that you are in, let's say, the S&P 500 fund, if you're in or if you're out sitting in cash on the sidelines on any given time frame or day. So that's where that's what we're going to call tactical. Tactical is attempting to answer the question, are you in or out? For a strategic allocation, let's define it like this. This allocation attempts to answer the question, which part of the markets should I be in at any given time? So this allocation does not attempt to get the timing right on getting into or out of the markets. Instead, it stays invested and attempts instead to adjust into which parts of the markets are most beneficial. The concept is to utilize the benefits of both index allocations and tactical allocations to find an appropriate easy medium. It's easy to see that there's a lot of value in this, let's call it a middle ground type of approach between being way on the side of the tactical or way on the side of index. So a lot of potential benefit there. So we'll spend some time on this concept for sure as it relates to navigating retirement in a low interest rate environment. Remember, that's not to say active, tactical, or indexes don't have value. As you've seen me reiterate over and over again in these videos, there is a time and a place for just about every strategy once you have the knowledge to know when and how to implement it. All right, as for an index allocation, let's spend some time on this right now. An index is purely, it's a set of rules, criteria, and math. You take those rules and apply that to all the investments that are in the world, and if they fit into the category created by the rules, then you have the investments that align to the index. That's super important. You have the investments that align to the index. And it's at that given time that you're running the scenario. Remember, the index itself does not have any investments. It's just the rules. This is important because people who usually consider themselves pretty smarty pants, they have a tendency to think that, quote, I can just buy the index. And then they expect that their account will act exactly like the news reports say the index did that day or that month or that year. Don't do that. It actually demonstrates a lack of understanding of what it really takes to buy the investments that match up with the rules of the index. By its very nature, the math can happen automatically, and it can happen easily for, say, like the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones Industrial Average, or even the Morgan Stanley Capital International World Index called the MSCI World Index. The math can happen constantly and automatically. But it would be a misunderstanding to think that at any given moment, I could go out and own that mathematical index. The reality is that your pricing is going to be slightly different. There will be a transaction cost if you go out and purchase every one of the 1,603 stocks that make up the MSCI World Index. Let's pretend, just for illustration purposes, let's pretend the transaction cost is $1 per stock. Well, that is $1,603. So you now own the stocks that align with that index. But your total investment doesn't match the pure math of the index. You're already behind $1,603. And if one of those stocks falls out of the parameters of the investment, guess what? Now you're not exactly in line with the index. So you have to sell the one that fell out. You got to buy the new one that now qualifies to be in. And you're going to be doing that at the same time that everybody else who's tracking the index, they're also selling the same one that you're selling, driving prices down, and buying the same one that you're buying, driving prices up. So you're probably not going to get the exact pricing that was used in the math for the current index. So you can see how holding the investments that meet the index criteria is not going to line up with the pure and simple math of the index. If it's still foggy to you, let's try another example. Let's use a metaphor for real estate. Let's say you want to buy a duplex. You're going to spruce it up and rent it out as a fully furnished vacation rental. And let's say that you can buy one for, I'm going to make up a number here. Depending on your market, you'll think this is horrible or that's great or whatever. Let's call it $300,000. You agree with the seller that for $300,000 you're going to buy this. In this metaphor, that agreed to price is the equivalent of the mathematical price, like the one that you hear reported on the news of the stock or the bond index. You think, okay, I want to own this at this price in order to get the return that I want. But in real estate, we all kind of understand this. It seems to be a little more automatic that your total cost to truly have an investment, it's going to be more than $300,000. Even if there isn't a real estate agent commission, there's still going to be the cost of making sure that you have clear title and you have insurance, and you have closing costs, maybe some mortgage costs, your property taxes, you got to get the water and the sewer and the power online, and then there's some furnishings, and now you actually have something that's an investment. It's that same basic concept with a stock or a bond index. You can look at the price of the index in theory and the underlying holdings, but understand that there is a lot that goes on the investment exchanges and the clearing houses and the trading platforms and managing the holdings as the index changes, and some holdings increase or they fall out and some move into or out of the parameters of the index. And how are you going to pay the trading cost to rebalance, to keep it in line with the ever-changing pricing of those underlying holdings that match up with the index? It takes a lot to move that index from theory to an actual holding in your account. I think that mutual funds and exchange-traded funds, ETFs, that do this for you, they're truly amazing. Which brings me to no load, or what some people call no fee or load wave funds and exchange traded funds. I like them. There really is a cost to owning them. But new ETFs and funds, they've done an excellent job of being very close to the index. I would make the case that they are great and that they truly are low cost. To say it's like 0.1%, even if it's 1%, which typically is not an index fund, but even if it were, think about this. Just compare that cost to what it takes to start up any investment. You're going to go, start a business, or make a real estate investment, or buy into a franchise, or even if you consider like education and investment in yourself. All of those things, they're great, but the cost of those is way higher than to buy into these well-established holdings that make up a fund. Let me point out just two of the many reasons that I want you to have a correct understanding of this index fund concept, because it could help you avoid costly mistakes in navigating retirement. Sadly, these are true life examples. I've simplified it because they're not fun, but let me just teach you the concepts. Let's say that you're preparing for retirement and you plug in your numbers into some online system, and you even answer some risk profile questions. Then the program, it spits out what index would be appropriate for you, and based on those index returns, you're going to have enough money to get you through retirement. You'll have some income that you need, and you won't run out of money during your life. So you think, this is great. Do you see the issues here? So many of those programs just use the index returns. But if you purchase an index fund at really even great index funds, they can lag the index by 1 or 2 or even 3%. It's not because they're bad funds. It's just the nature of the cost to actually create an investment. To go back to our house metaphor, the duplex you're buying, which in our metaphor is the index in my simple example, it could be totally fine. But if you don't take into account the necessary costs of turning a great idea into an actual investment, then it's not going to provide the return that you expected or needed for retirement. So that was the case with these folks that came in, driven mostly by the wife, because the husband was not a stop and ask for directions kind of guy. So they came into me after a few years of retirement and said, we've been using well-known index funds, and the internet program said that we could do this, but somehow the numbers aren't adding up. Well, they didn't understand those underlying causes. They didn't understand what was going on, but now you understand. One last example and I'll wrap it up. It will be tempting to find an index fund that outperforms the index. I mean, that seems enticing. Why not, right? Well, we've just reviewed that if the fund is hugging the index and staying true to it, then after expenses and trading and rebalancing costs, etc., the end result is that should lag the index some. This is where I've seen people end up with more risk in their account than they were really able to afford because they wanted to match or beat the index without realizing that by definition, that fund, if it's matching or beating the index, it must be taking on more risk than the index in some fashion in order to do that. That can be a huge gotcha in retirement. We'll continue this in the next few videos. Stick with us and you're gonna be a genius. Or better yet, let us do the work to help you determine what strategies can help you either get on or stay on the right track. We'll talk to you soon.
If this information has been helpful to you, check out our other Telton's Tips videos, or better yet, call our office. You can talk to an advanced financial planning team member like me. Imagine that, a real life human that cares about you and your goals. My name is Caden Keller. I work here as a financial advisor along with Telton and the rest of the team. Here, we take a team approach to caring for our clients because we all know 2 heads are better than 1. So give our office a call and I or anyone else on the team would be happy to answer a quick question for you or schedule a complimentary retirement planning meeting. There's also a link provided if you would like to learn more about who we are at Advanced Financial Planning or what it is we do for our clients in planning for their retirement. Lastly, the schedule an appointment link will bring up our calendar and you can choose a time for a complimentary on the phone or an in-person retirement planning meeting. Whichever option you choose, the only mistake is to do nothing and keep working and putting retirement preparation off until you die at your desk. I've seen it time and time again. No matter how good and specialized Telton and I are, when people wait too long to seriously consider their retirement options, they're significantly set back and can damage their retirement. So call, schedule, or click to learn more. You've got nothing to lose and your future self in retirement has a whole lot to gain.